I ask you all, whatever this bill is supposed to do, let that bill do it. Let's do that. But like the Hippocratic Oath says, please do no harm.
Back in March, that was Florida Democrat Chevron Jones, the state's first openly gay state senator, urging his colleagues to support his amendment limiting some of the worst aspects of the state's parental rights and education bill, which is more commonly known as the Don't Say Gay bill. It didn't work. Jones' amendment failed. Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis signed the bill into law later that month. The policy bans the discussion of sexuality or gender identity in some Florida classrooms, requires parents to be notified of any health or support services offered to their children, like, say, guidance for a student struggling with their gender identity. Also gives parents and guardians the opportunity to deny their child that care, effectively forcing schools to out students to their guardians. National Republicans saw that Florida law and said, what if we did something even worse? And so 33 House Republicans introduced a federal version of the Don't Say Gay bill yesterday, and they have every intention of bringing it up for a vote if they win power. And let's be clear, it is worse than Florida's bill, much worse. The bill bans any federally funded entity, that includes schools, libraries, military bases, hospitals, from discussing, quote, any topic involving gender identity, gender dysphoria, transgenderism, sexual orientation, or related subjects with kids under the age of 10. I gotta say, related subjects is probably doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Entirely open to interpretation, right? Say a gay teacher talking about going away for the weekend with her husband. Trans librarian merely existing or mentioning a banal aspect of their life. But it gets worse. Bill would also allow parents to sue if their child under 10 is, quote, exposed to sexually oriented material funded by federal funds. Again, redefining the existence or discussion of gay people and trans people into sexually explicit. What does that do? The bill would essentially give parents the legal authority to harass any employee of a federally funded entity based on their identity alone. But here's the thing. Some Republicans are not content leaving it at federal employees. This week, Republican Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, one of 100 U.S. senators, a man with a massive platform and a lot of power, used his massive platform to harass a random private school teacher for the sin of being trans. Cruz shared a since-deleted post, which mockingly posted an announcement from a D.C. preschool about a trans teacher who was pregnant. The post contained the man's name, as well as the name of the school where he works. Now, let's just be clear. This is not a public figure. Nothing to do with policy. It's not someone who asked to be part of the national discourse. Just literally a random person who got pregnant and should be celebrating a joyous occasion. And it's worth asking, what does Ted Cruz think should happen to this teacher exactly? A person whose only fault, in his eyes, is existing while trans. Perhaps the senator can enlighten us on the next episode of his podcast. But while we don't know the answer to that question, we do know some members of the far right are now using openly eliminationist rhetoric about LGBT folks. In a new op-ed, a senior writer for The Federalist argued the power of the state should be weaponized in response to the, quote, transgender question. This is in the course of an essay that essentially argues for fascism. The transgender question, of course, echoes the language used by the Nazis towards Jews during the Holocaust, the Jewish question and how to solve it. The op-ed I refer to here called for imprisoning parents who take their kids to drag shows, as well as doctors who perform gender-affirming care on trans patients. Let's be clear here. Rhetoric like this can get people hurt. LGBT folks, particularly trans folks, are under attack in this country by the most reactionary and authoritarian forces, and they are channeling the darkest forms of intimidation. And I know there are people watching this program right now, there's people who I know and love who have complicated feelings about gender identity and complicated feelings about trans folks in sports, things like that. And I get that. I get there's complexity out there. But some things aren't complex. Standing up for people that are being bullied, whose lives are being targeted. It is incumbent on all of us to recognize the basic facts of what's happening here. Incumbent on all of us to protect our fellow Americans whose lives these craven politicians want to ruin.